You know, there's nothing like a good old-fashioned action film, and today we're going to look at one of the greatest ones of all time. As at the channel point's request of Scaro, we're going to look at Police Story, released in 1985. So Police Story is a Hong Kong action comedy film which was starred and directed and partially written by Jackie Chan. The film centers around a police officer named Kaku who is trying to arrest a drug lord. It ends up being not that simple, of course, and Kaku ends up on the wrong side of the law himself. The film was critically acclaimed and a huge blockbuster success in Asia and Europe, grossing about $18 million, equivalent to about $47 million now. It won Best Film at the 1986 Hong Kong Film Awards, and Jackie Chan himself considers it his best ever action film. It's probably his most important film as well, as this is really the film that established him as not only one of the premier actors, but maybe the premier stunt performer in the entire world. He performs a high number of dangerous stunts by himself in this movie, including the last one, which is considered by many to possibly be the greatest action stunt of all time. And in a poll done of film critics, directors, actors, and stunt performers in 2016, Police Story was voted the 4th best action film ever. But was Kaku able to bring this drug lord in? Well, we're going to find out right now as we look back at Police Story, released in 1985. And the film begins, as I just described it, with Kaku and the other members of the police department attempting to arrest a drug lord named Chu Tao. They have a whole operation set up which very quickly goes sideways after they're recognized by some of Chu Tao's men. During this initial struggle, Kaku is able to arrest Chu Tao's secretary named Selina. The police and Chu Tao's men have a huge gunfight throughout this village, which ends in Kaku chasing them in a car down through the village, which basically destroys the whole village. Chu Tao and his men eventually escape onto a bus, but Kaku catches up to them, and using an umbrella he stole from a civilian, is able to get onto the bus. Chu Tao uses his briefcase to knock him out of the bus, so he needs a new strategy now. He's able to get ahead of the bus's path and stop it using a civilian's car. He then arrests Chu Tao, who tries to bribe him with a briefcase full of money, to no avail. After Kaku's heroic accomplishment, Superintendent Lee as well as Head Inspector Bill Cho decide to make Kaku the public face of the police department. Superintendent Lee also decides to drop all the charges on Selina in exchange for her testimony, and to make sure that she doesn't run off, he assigns Kaku to watch over her. Meanwhile, Chu Tao as well as his defense attorney decide that Selina cannot be trusted, and they arrange to have her killed. Kaku meanwhile has followed Selina home and waits outside her house to protect her. She doesn't seem to want the protection until somebody sneaks in her window and assaults her. This masked man's doing a really poor job of getting at her. As turns out, he was actually set up by Kaku to scare Selina into thinking that she needs protection. It goes a little not according to plan though, as Selina legitimately knocks the perpetrator out, who's also a fellow police department member, and then she sees his face. She's fully committed to Kaku's protection now, and they decide to go to his place. On the way, while driving Selina's car, they're assaulted by actually Chu Tao's men this time, but Kaku is able to fend them off. When they arrive at Kaku's house, turns out it's his birthday, and his girlfriend May set up a surprise party for him, but when she sees him coming home with a girl in lingerie, she doesn't take too well to it. It gets worse when she comes back unbeknownst to Kaku, and then Kaku rants to Selina about her, which she hears all of, and gets angry again and leaves. While he's outside, Selina sees some of Kaku's pictures and notices the man that assaulted her in one of them, realizing that he's a cop and that she was set up. They both go to sleep, but then Kaku awakes the next morning to find Selina gone. He testifies at the trial without her, but his testimony, while good, is not good enough to get Chu Tao convicted. Luckily though, the previous day Selina was telling him some things about Chu Tao's business, and he recorded it, and he has the tape with him. Unfortunately, Selina also recorded over that tape, so they have no evidence. Chu Tao then goes free, but it's not enough for him, as he really wants revenge on Kaku. Turns out he has a police inspector named Man in his back pocket, and he wants to use Man to kill Kaku. Man later calls Kaku and lures him to a house under the guise that Selina has been trapped there. And sure enough, he shows up and sees Selina tied to a chair, but then he's ambushed by Chu Tao's men. Kaku becomes overwhelmed until Man saves him, or so he thought, as he learns of the ruse. But turns out Man was set up as well, as Chu Tao's men shoot him using Kaku's gun. Kakui and Selena escape onto a roof, and Selena escapes altogether after Kakui throws her off the roof into a pool. However, he can't get away, and he's chloroformed by Chu Tao's men. The next day, the police department discover Inspector Man's body, and also discover that it was Kakuo's gun used to kill him. Kakuo wakes up in a field, not remembering what happened, and then makes his way back to the police department to find that he's a wanted suspect. Superintendent Lee tries to have him arrested for murder, which sends Kakuo way over the edge. Kakui then kidnaps the superintendent at gunpoint and takes him away in a car. Kakui eventually lets him go though, planning to go after Chu Tao himself. Kakui then goes and confronts one of Chu Tao's men, who tells him where Chu Tao's whereabouts usually are. Turns out he has an office at a shopping mall, so Kakui and Mei stake out outside there. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Selena also has her own agenda as she heads into the mall, knowing the code she's the only one other than Chu Tao, and uses it to steal all of Chu Tao's computer data, which would incriminate him. This draws Chu Tao and cronies to the mall to stop Selena, and Kakui follows them in. And this final action sequence is pretty awesome. Some of the stunts and action fights between Kakui and Chu Tao's men are just tremendous, throwing them through shit, using objects, and poor Selena, I gotta say, she really takes a beating during this. She gets thrown through glass multiple times. Eventually, Kakui sends for Mei to get the briefcase, but she gets kicked down multiple flights of stairs. This sends him over the edge, and here comes that huge final action sequence. He slides down a huge metal pole covered in light bulbs down several floors below to get to Chu Tao. This stunt was legitimately done by Chan himself and resulted in him suffering second-degree burns in his hands, as well as a back injury and dislocating his pelvis. Kakui finally gets his hands on Chu Tao and holds him at glass point, I guess technically, as the police department show up. They're trying to talk Kakui down, and then Selena shows back up and tells them that all the evidence they need is in Chu Tao's briefcase. They're eventually able to talk Kakui down, but then Chu Tao's attorney shows up and starts making a big stink, and that's about all Kakui can take, as he beats up the attorney and then destroys Chu Tao's internal organs before kicking him to a shopping cart, and then he's held back by the fellow officers as the film ends. First of all, I want to praise this film for its satisfying ending. It's not often that everybody who deserves to get their ass kicked actually gets their ass kicked, but that's exactly what happened here. And I really like the evolution, or maybe the de-evolution of Jackie Chan's character throughout this film, because while it starts off with a lot of comedy, and there's even comedy halfway through it, by the end, it is not a comedy film anymore. Kakui goes from happy-go-lucky but diligent police officer to someone who has no faith in the system anymore and just blinded by rage, all in a span of about 100 minutes, which is an impressive accomplishment. And honestly, I feel like knowing the things like Chan doing his own stunts enhances the stunts that much more. Because like with normal action films, it's like, oh, okay, they got stunt producers and all that, but like, my god, he did pretty much all this shit himself, from hanging off the bus, sliding down that light fixture, which probably could have killed him. The man is crazy, but he's also crazy talented. And it's crazy that, again, without this film, who knows how Jackie Chan plays out? I mean, everybody knows who Jackie Chan is. Everybody. He's one of, if not the most recognizable actor in the entire world. And it's because of this film. This is what mainly got him over Western audiences and introduced everybody to what he can do. This film is his legacy, pretty much. He's done so much more past this, but ultimately this is what's going to go down as most important. And if you've never seen this one, you really should see this one. This is on that short list I've talked about before of greatest films of all time. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for my look back at Police Story. Thank you again, Scaro, for using your points on this. Next week is going to be another important film, albeit one very different from this, as we are going to look at Face Off. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they're all in the video description down below. Thank you to all my patrons, also named in the video description, for supporting me and all my channels. I appreciate you guys. With all that being said, though, my name is Noah Taff. This has been my look back at Police Story, released in 1985, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.